potential of our state in every mode of transport, we thought this would be an apt topic for the conference. As we are all aware, logistics plays a very crucial role in trade. It is a sunrise sector in our country today. The sector is going very fast with participation from both domestic and international players. Today, this is of extreme importance to us because in any industry, logistics plays a role in reducing the cost of the end product. Logistics is also a key area not just for the government of Goa but for the government of India. Both the governments together, we are trying to bring down the logistics cost from 9% per GDP, from 14 to 16% to 9% per GDP in the next 3 years. To enable this, the central government has launched the PM Gati Shakti National Scheme, and the state government has launched the new logistics and warehouse policy. To promote the logistics sector and creation of warehouses, the state government is also amending the Goa Industrial Development Act. The purpose is to allocate more land towards warehouse development. We also appreciate the fact that the state government is planning to develop a multimodal logistics park under the PM Gati Shakti scheme. The GID has always been giving emphasis to industrial sector. However, only 10% of the available land was allocated to logistics services. Now, with the new logistics policy, we are hoping to get a much larger portion allocated for logistics. This would also lead to further employment generation in the state. CII has been significantly working with the government, industry and all stakeholders to enhance and sustainably promote the logistics sector. And I would like to thank all the stakeholders and the industry for their support in this. We are now closely working with the government of Goa to successfully implement the same, and I am hopeful that we will meet the goal in the days to come. We are also targeting to attract more investment in the logistics sector. Deliberations during various sessions and panel discussions at the conference coming up would aim at facilitating an integrated, cost-effective, seamless and timely delivery of project so as to encourage investment in the state's economy. The various sessions would focus on emerging air cargo potential from the Manohar International Airport MOPA, creating synergies between the PM Gati Shakti scheme and the Goa state logistics policy, setting up a cold chain management for perishable cargo movement by air in an economical and sustainable manner, leveraging Goa as a multimodal logistics hub. Deliberations on critical economic activities in the region such as manufacturing, agriculture and trade play a significant role in driving air cargo demand. These industries would also benefit from the reduced cost of logistics once we develop the logistics properly in the state. Before handing over the mic to my colleagues and proceeding with the program, I would like to unveil the logo for the CII Logistics Conference. Can I request the team to please join me? Thank you, gentlemen. Before I hand over the mic to my colleagues, I would like to thank everyone from the media for your support always and today, and we look forward to you covering us even more at the conference. I would now like to hand over the mic to my colleague, Mr. Anthony Gaskell, who is the mentor and who will tell you more about the logistics conference. Over to you, Anthony.
Yes. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's session. So, as I think you've heard, this is going to be the 9th CII Goa Logistics Conference, and I feel honored to say that I think we've made some difference in terms of at least the understanding of what is logistics in Goa, and people have some idea of the importance of having a good logistics setup here in Goa to support the industry. So in this year's conference, we have different sessions. I'm going to focus on those, but I did want to tell you that we're very pleased to be able to tell you that we have Ms. Sumita Daura, IAS officer. She's Special Secretary Logistics Division in the Ministry of Commerce from Delhi. So she's spearheading the implementation of the National Logistics Policy and the PM Gati Shakti program throughout the country. And she's spared time to come to Goa to help us in our efforts to do the same in our state here in Goa. So I'd just like to run you through the different sessions. We'll be publishing the program shortly, but I can just give you an outline of what we're going to talk about in this session. We're going to have 4 business sessions. The first one will be concentrating on air cargo. As you perhaps remember from last year's conference, the main theme of last year's conference was Mopa Airport as a game changer for logistics in Goa. So Mopa Airport is now open. It's now open for international cargo operations as well as domestic cargo operations. And already there are international flights carrying cargo to and from Mopa Airport, and more international flights are expected to commence using the airport as the winter program gets implemented. And what we understand from GMR, who are operating the airport, is pretty soon there will almost be daily international cargo flights operating from Mopa Airport. So that's like a big step in the right direction as far as air cargo logistics in the state is concerned. So the first session will really be talking about Mopa Airport and like the potential development plans and what are the cargoes that can be developed to support the operations there. The second session, we are going to talk about the PM Gati Shakti program and the Goa state logistics policy. As you're aware, India has adopted a national logistics policy. Now Goa state has also written the state logistics policy, which has been adopted in the recent assembly session, and now that policy needs to be implemented. So a policy is a policy, but then what are the next steps after that? When you come to implementing the policy, what does that mean on the ground and what's really going to be happening? So we want to explore those options, and in that session we have this Ms. Sumita Daura also, and we have Ms. Swechika Sachin, who's the IAS officer charged with putting forth and implementing or putting out the state logistics policy. She's also the chairperson of the Investment Promotion Board, as well as director in the Department of Trade and Industry. So she carries many roles, all related to the industry and logistics. And so in that session we'll be talking about the PM Gati Shakti, how that can be implemented and relevant to Goa, and the state logistics policy. So I think that's a very interesting session for everybody to understand what this means for Goa and how Goa can benefit from these 2 initiatives. Then we move on to the third session. So the third session, we're going to focus on cold chain logistics. Because the opening of Mopa Airport gives a huge opportunity for cold chain exports and imports, primarily pharmaceutical. I mean, as I think you're all aware, Goa is a center of pharmaceutical production in the country, a very important center. I think this figure I've heard is something more than 12% of India's pharmaceutical production is produced in Goa, and a very large proportion of the exports of pharmaceuticals, because most of the units here in Goa are export-oriented. And up till now, the exports have been moving through Nava Shiva, or not so Nava Shiva by sea and through Mumbai Airport by air. With the opening of Mopa Airport and the international flight availability, we're hoping that the Goa production of the pharmaceuticals for export can start moving through Mopa Airport. So that's one issue that we'll be talking about. But the availability of flights for refrigerated cargo also opens up the possibility for other products, especially agri products. And Goa has a lot of fertile land, a lot of which is not used productively right now. But I think there is a great opportunity here for farmers to develop suitable crops which can be exported to markets such as in the Middle East and Europe at much good profit levels to reinvigorate the agricultural sector here in Goa. So we'll be talking about that, and we have the director of the Department of Agriculture and Goa involved in that session, as well as other industry stakeholders. So I think that promises to be an interesting session. Then the last session, we're going to talk about leveraging Goa as a multimodal logistics hub, and with a primary focus on the Goa port. As you know, we have a major port in Goa, but it's not really serving the needs of the trade in Goa today because there is no modern functioning container terminal. That's been an issue which I think everybody's aware of in recent conferences, and so we want to focus on that. We have a new port chairman who's recently taken over charge at Goa Port Authority, and I think he's keen to make his mark and do something, and we are hoping that the trade can come forward and say that they would be willing to support the Goa port if certain initiatives were taken to provide the relevant facilities. Especially the issue is, one of the main issues is that there is no functioning crane at the moment which can lift containers or other cargoes. So that's one of the issues we want to take up in that session. And if we have Mopa Airport and we have a functioning port, as well as the 2 rail lines and the improved road net that we have, and then we're talking about setting up the multimodal logistics parks in Goa, then we're making the base for Goa to really become a logistics hub. That's something we've been talking about over the years in all of the conferences, and I think that's been talked about. I think in the past you've heard Sri Suresh Prabhu mention that Goa can be a logistics hub. We've heard our industries minister say the same thing. But all of these elements that I just talked about need to be put in place for it to happen. So we're optimistic this time that things really are moving in the right direction and people are understanding what needs to be done. So we hope at this conference that we can push all this forward and get all the stakeholders working in the right direction and aligned in the right direction to make Goa this logistics hub that we've been talking about. So thank you, and that's what I have to say.
We also have with us Professor Raj Amonkar, who is from Goa Institute of Management. They are our knowledge partners. Can I ask you to brief the press?
Thank you, Chairman Mr. Agrawal. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So it's indeed an honor for Goa Institute of Management to partner with CII Goa for this 9th edition of the Goa Logistics Conference. As Mr. Gaskar, Chairman of the Logistics Panel, has already briefed regarding the sessions which would be sort of planned during this conference. And one key session here is about the PM Gati Shakti plan and the Goa logistics policy, because everything else hovers around this policy. The policy is an excellent beginning, and in fact it's credited with giving direction to both the government and investors. But yet need is felt to operationalize it, to facilitate the implementation of this policy. And in light of this, one of our senior professors, Mr. Sebastian Morris, who incidentally will also be chairing the session on the Goa logistics policy at the conference. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it today, and so in fact I'm representing Goa the GIM on his behalf. So he has comprehensively analyzed this particular policy, and I'll just share with you today the pointers which we are looking at for the conference. So first is the need is felt to lay out a time framework for the proposals as per the policy. I'm sorry. The need is felt to lay out a time framework for the proposals under the plan, and also to understand the financial implications outlining the sector, because we expect several stakeholders to participate in the conference, and in by way of inputs, etc., we would expect that to happen. Maybe the modes of financing. Excellent initiatives are there in the policy in terms of the single window clearance for the investors. So the need is felt to better understand what this single window policy is all about. And Professor Morris, for instance, has made some suggestions in terms of having a high-powered committee if possible. So maybe we can have some deliberations on that. Another very key aspect is what should Goa actually focus on? Because we have heavy logistics on one hand, where we have iron ore, coal, and bulk materials which are being handled. And at the same time, we also have light logistics for small materials like pharmaceuticals, the agricultural products which Mr. Gaskell spoke about. So what actually should be the focus for Goa going forward? That's something which can be deliberated. Then the connectivity abilities which are there in the state in terms of the rail transport, in terms of the inland waterways, what actually needs to be done to facilitate the logistics. This is another very important aspect which has been covered by the Professor Morris. So that's about all that I have to say. I'm very happy to take questions. Thank you.
So, any questions for the panel here?
Mr. Gaskin, you said that all elements need to be put in place now for Goa to become a logistic hub. Which are the elements which are in place and which are not?
Well, we've already said we have a functioning airport now. So now we need to get a functioning seaport, basically primarily being able to handle container shipments through the port. I mean, right now, the port is not handling containers at all, and those, they're moving by road to Nava Sheva. Of course, we do have, I didn't mention, we do have a functioning ICD now since last year. The ICD is now able to handle international cargo. So containers can move by rail from Bali ICD. But to complete the picture, definitely the port needs to be able to handle containers. And there's a large part of the trade here which is really suffering because there is no container port handling containers in Goa, and they have to move expensively by road to Nava Sheva. And then we talked about land allocation for logistics. There's no specific area dedicated for logistics at the moment in Goa. And if we were to attract serious investors in logistics, that's putting up effectively modern warehousing, multimodal logistics parks, you can call it. But really that amounts to modern warehousing. Then we need to have some land that they can come in and invest in. And that's obviously an important issue that the government needs to be aware of. And so we're hoping that some land can be dedicated for that under this GIDC policy, which was already referred to. Rail is there, ICD is functioning. The road network is also there. Of course, it's still being improved. But as part of a multimodal logistics park, you also need to have truck terminals. I mean, as people are aware, trucks are parked willy-nilly here and there all over the roads in Goa because there is no proper dedicated truck parking and facilities for the truck drivers. And that's increasingly become an issue because, although driving a truck has some remuneration, you can imagine the life of a truck driver is actually very unpleasant today, and with no facilities and no proper washrooms, random places to stop and eat. So these are the kind of things that need to be modernized and improved going forward. So I think the conferences, we've touched upon a lot of these areas in the past, and we're continuing to focus on them. But basically, all of the areas need to be improved that we've discussed, and then Goa can actually indeed be a logistics hub.
You spoke about Mopa Airport, you spoke about port. But as far as when you talk about logistics, is there any scope for Dabolim Airport or nothing?
See, Dabolim Airport primarily will be a passenger airport. Dabolim doesn't have a cargo terminal. And in fact, the cargo was being taken down to the Marmagoa port, any inbound cargo. So, I mean, Dabolim will still continue to handle some cargo, whatever comes on the passenger flights coming in. But primarily, air cargo, when you're talking about cargo moving by air, you need wide-body planes for that. And you can also have dedicated cargo freighters. So Mopa Airport will be able to cater to those, and they're hoping to attract a cargo freighter from one airline or another. I think you're aware in the past we've had Emirates Airline, we've had different meetings with Emirates to try to attract them, but if Emirates don't come, there are other airlines who can come and bring in freighters. And those freighters would only come to Mopa, they couldn't come to Dabolim because there's no cargo facility there. And also Dabolim doesn't really have facility for refrigerated cargo, so handling pharmaceutical cargo through Dabolim would be very difficult. So, whereas Mopa is I don't know, has anybody seen the cargo terminal at Mopa Airport?
It was not built.
Yes, it's ready and it's open, so if you'd like, we can speak to GMR to organize a press session to go to Mopa Airport and actually see that it's a state-of-the-art cargo facility, equaling anywhere in the world, if you ask me. Okay, and we have that facility here in Goa now. We should all feel very proud.
A couple of months back, there was a constraint because the roads, the Chorla Ghat being blocked. Since Mopa is supposed to cater not just to Goa but the surrounding districts, what has been your experience or the industry experience regarding the road conditions?
Yeah, especially in Goa, all over.
Both the ghats in fact are closed. They are almost
And overall, Goa, you can say.
So, because of the road problem, see, Goa is a very small state. I don't see too much potential for making bigger roads or wider roads. What our goal is, what we spoke to some of the government officials also, is to connect Mopa by rail. Have a rail system that connects it to the neighboring towns as well as within Goa. There's lots of, like how you have in international cities, there is a terminal of the station at the airport, which will also do cargo as well as passenger. So not just people, even cargoes from neighboring states can all come to Goa and be handled from here. So that is a possible solution we see to it.
No, but you say that you don't have space for roads to make new roads. But would you have that same space for this rail line?
I think a railway line a single railway line would handle much more cargo and people than the same space of a road line.
Just to elaborate a little bit more, we've been talking to GMR about having a link. For now, they could have a link by road to Panem or to Tivim stations, so that would actually make sense, and cargo could move on the rail to or from Tivim and have a little short road haulage to the airport. So all of these options are being explored actually. So Mopa is a game changer, and Mopa has a lot of facilities. That's going to become a whole cluster in and around Mopa. But to really answer your question about the roads, yes, I mean, the roads are the roads. I mean, what can be improved is the all-weather, the year-round operability of the roads, actually. I mean, that's one of the main issues in Goa. In the dry season, they're fine, but in the monsoon, everything goes to pieces. So I think that's something that can be worked on.
What are the current levels of investment in logistics in Goa? One. And two, a couple of years ago, a private player, CMM, had proposed in Dar Bandora, and the government had even notified an area in Dar Bandora as a logistic park. What is the progress there, if you have any idea? They had proposed it in their own land holding.
No, I'm aware. In fact, we'd invited CMM to be part of the conference, so I don't really have an update on that. I presume they're pursuing their plans, but unfortunately, I mean, both directors are traveling and they're away at the moment, so at the conference, unfortunately, we won't have an update from CMM, but that's one. So, but obviously, I think that is going ahead as far as I know. The other question about what is the level of investment in logistics? Current level. I mean, when you're talking about warehousing or
warehousing.
See, right now there aren't too many dedicated warehousing facilities being set up in Goa. I'm not really aware of any actually, but people are doing their own warehousing. See, the old-fashioned way of warehousing was that you're a manufacturer and you make your own warehouse, and that was the old GIDC policy, and that's the policy in a lot of countries around the world was, okay? And also warehouses were built on the ground, not on raised platforms. So, there's old technology and there's new technology. And the new technology is actually this third-party logistics. You outsource, to professionals who can handle the warehousing part. If you're a manufacturer, probably your expertise is in the manufacturing, not about logistics necessarily. So the world has moved in that direction, that you outsource, to service providers who could do the operation better than you. So that's the option that, ideally we want to get people to come in and invest in Goa. Goa doesn't have a huge population, but it has above average income here. And it brings in a lot of materials from outside, So I think in the long run, the people like Amazon, and there will be a whole distribution need. The idea is to get them to come in now and give the whole industry a boost. Otherwise, if we wait, by the time they wait, there will be no land available because Goa is developing so fast. So the land needs to be allocated now, actually.
So not much progress in logistics over the years, except for awareness, greater awareness, but otherwise there's no.
No, we have Mopa Airport, we have the ICD. Okay, I mean the port has been a disappointment, okay, in that sense, but I mean, hopefully that can change. The road network has been improving, and definitely there's an awareness, as was mentioned by Chairman, that GIDC whole rules are being amended, and we hope that GIDC will become a very different organization after the new rules come in, and actually be very responsive, and investors can come to Goa and get a friendly welcome and be treated like investors should be treated actually.